Death at Gallows Green. Chapter 27. "The rats get upon my nerves, Cousin Rippy," said Tabitha. Beatrix Potter, the roly-poly pudding. "I should like," Kate said to Bea at breakfast the next morning, "to make an excursion. It is time we talked to Mrs. McGregor." "What can she tell us?" Bea asked from the sideboard, where she was serving herself a generous portion of Mrs. Pratt's scrambled eggs and herring from a silver dish. "She is the sister of Tommy Brock, the mysterious Mr. B," Kate said, spreading marmalade on toast. "She ought to know where he's to be found." Bea added some stewed apples to her plate and sat down at the table. "But what would we do once we have discovered his whereabouts?" She paused and after a moment added uneasily, "Do you intend that we should actually confront the man?" Kate added another spoonful of marmalade to her toast. Bea had lived her entire life with a father who oversaw her every move and a mother who continually fretted about her health and her welfare. Seen in that context, her decision to visit Bishop's Keep alone and without her permission had been a brave and daring act. Kate did not want to push her to a point where she might regret her adventure. Beryl Bartwell might be all for bearding the elusive Mr. Brock in his den, wherever that was, but Kate had to take her friend's nervousness into account. "Well then," Kate replied, "perhaps we could enlist the aid of Sir Charles." "A capital idea," Bea said more comfortably. "We can discover where to find this Tommy Brock, and Sir Charles can take the matter from there." She looked at Kate. "It isn't that I'm not brave, of course." She laughed a little. "Or is it? You were brave enough to confront a killer." Kate had told her about her encounter with the aunt's murderer. "Perhaps I'm simply too timorous." No, Kate said. "Looking back, I shudder at what I did. It strikes me as incredibly foolhardy now, although at the time it seemed quite necessary." She busied herself with a teapot. "But I have another idea. What would you say to a nocturnal expedition in addition to a morning excursion? Please say no straight away if you wish," she added hurriedly. "A nocturnal excursion?" Bea smiled. "Now that's something to which I am accustomed. My brother Bertram's ferret, quite a fascinating creature really, had been trained by his previous owner to hunt rats. At night, after Papa and Mama had gone to bed, Bertram and I often took Filbert into the alley behind Bolton Gardens so that we might observe his behavior. Bertram is quite as taken with animals as I am." Her eyes shone with mischief. Poor Mama, she would have perished with fear had she known that I went ratting with Filbert and Bertram. Her face darkened and she shook her head, sadly musing. Poor Mama indeed. I doubt if she ever has been abroad at night after 9 except to go with Papa to the opera. Kate felt hardened. Bea was not quite the timid person she might appear. "In that case, the excursion I propose might be of interest to you. Its purpose is to observe rats. Of a sort." "Of a sort?" Bea raised both eyebrows. "I take it that you are speaking of metaphoric rats. We are likely to encounter criminals?" "If things happen as I anticipate, we might observe a certain amount of criminal activity," Kate conceded, feeling it best to be honest. "I should not expect the criminals to observe us, however. We will be quite safe." Bea finished the last of her eggs and herring, and appearing to give the matter a careful consideration. When she finally spoke, it was with resolute anticipation. "I have learned by experience," she said, "that it is prudent to wear dark clothing when one goes ratting at night." The morning excursion began a half-hour later. Kate and Bea drove the gig down sun-dappled Lamb's Lane and around the corner to McGregor's cottage, stopping in front and looping the pony's rein around the slender trunk of an ash tree. A pair of large grey geese accompanied them to the door, the gander stretching out his neck and hissing with a show of authority, the goose announcing their presence with loud cries. With such a noisy escort they were hardly required to knock. The door was opened by a short, plump woman in a black dress, white apron, and a flat white cap. She acknowledged their introductions and invited them into the parlour, a small, tidy room with a vase of daffodils on the mantel and an unlit fire neatly laid in the grate. Not a speck of dust could be seen on the small tables arranged on either side of the old-fashioned green plush sofa. The square sofa panes were crystal clear, and the flagstone floor was swept clean and covered with a scrap of blue wool carpet. Across the back of the sofa was an odd carriage rug of a beautifully striped grey fur that Kate could not identify. "Oh, that," Mrs. McGregor replied when Kate asked. "That's tabby cat skins, a dozen of 'em." They had been cured and prepared by her husband, who practiced the trade in the course of his profession as gamekeeper. In fact, all of the cats to which these skins belonged, most of them wild, had been caught in the traps Mr. McGregor set for vermin. Mrs. McGregor had matched the skins and sewn them together. "I've made many a rug of badger skins, and ladies' muffs and fox skins, and waistcoats of moleskin for gentlemen," she said proudly. "Moleskin work is tedious work, though, for each little skin is no bigger than a palm of your hand, and has to be done separate. When you collect a several score, there's a sewing together and cutting in the linen." She stroked the catskin rug. "I'd rather do cats than moles if it were left to me." Seeing that Bee was troubled at the thought of so many innocent foxes and moles sacrificed to warm a lady's hands or a gentleman's midriff, Kate hurriedly broached their reason for calling. But she did so obliquely, for if Mrs. McGregor knew their true motive for inquiring after her brother, she would never tell them what they wanted to know. "I find myself in need of another pair of hands at Bishop's Keep," Kate said, giving the reason Bee had helped her invent during their drive to the cottage. "The work will be steady and the remuneration substantial. I am informed that your brother Mr. Brock might be the right person for the position. I wonder if you could tell me where I might find him." Mrs. McGregor's face lighted up with such unabashed delight that Kate felt ashamed of the lie. "Certainly, I can tell you," she said. "'Twere an idle reason I wouldn't, 'cause Tom Brock is a man what seeks his privacy and never wants people to know where he lives. But steady work, now that's different, it is. Tommy would want me to jump at it." "Well then," Kate said, "where may I call to speak with him?" "Behind the picking whistle in Manningtree," Miss McGregor said. She paused, thinking. "I misdoubt you'll find him in the day, though. Best wait till tomorrow, I'd say." She smiled guilelessly, showing a broken front tooth. "He's got a job tonight, and as I tell him, Mr. McGregor. Yes, best wait till tomorrow." She stood up, obviously eager to please the lady who might be her brother's new employer. "Now, how do you ladies like a cup of tea?" When Kate and Bee returned to Bishop's Keep, Kate dispatched Pocket with word to Sir Charles that Tommy Brock might be found behind the pig and whistle in Manningtree.